I want to talk to you today about emotional regulation. Emotional regulation might be one of the most important topics that I've spent a lot of time in my own life working on and that I work with clients on day after day after day. Now, you may not be as familiar with the term emotional regulation, but if you've ever felt triggered and anxious and nervous or worried about someone else was going to think or fearful about something, then you've experienced emotional dysregulation. I want to explain to you what's happening in the brain and in the nervous system when we become dysregulated. So, in emotional dysregulation, our brain actually is firing down in the limbic system or even maybe in the lower survival area of the brain in the amygdala. When we're emotionally regulated, our brain is firing in the prefrontal cortex. Now that corresponds to our nervous system, and when our nervous system is dysregulated, which corresponding to those different brain areas, the nervous system is triggered to be in fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn. However, when we are regulated in that prefrontal cortex, then our nervous system is in its best state where everything is safe, everything is going well. Now the question is, what causes us to be dysregulated, and then how do we re-regulate ourselves? One of the primary causes of dysregulated nervous system comes from chronic stress as a child. I've experienced a lot of chronic stress in my childhood that I'm working to unwind and recover from. And I've done a lot of that, but there's still days like today where my nervous system is feeling a little dysregulated. And for the clients that I work with, experiencing emotional dysregulation can be extremely limiting in how you engage with your family and how you engage with your work. It can leave you feeling unsafe in the world. It can leave you feeling hypervigilant. It can leave you feeling exhausted, burned out, and especially if you've developed kind of a chronic pattern of dysregulation. So chronic childhood stress is one of the main ways that causes us to have high levels of dysregulation. Now, you might say, what does that have to do with me today in the present moment? Well, anything that happens in the present moment that sounds like or feels like an echo of something stressful that happened to you earlier in life triggers that dysregulation. And so as we go on a journey of healing, it's important that we understand two things. One, we're a whole, our identity, all human beings have an identity as whole, happy, healthy human beings. I mean, that's how we all pretty much arrived in this world. But stressful events or traumatic events shape us and influence us. So when we go on a journey of healing from those events, it can be easy to identify more with the trauma or the stress that caused the events than it is to remember that we are at our core a whole human being. So that's important to remember, or to rediscover in this journey of healing and emotional regulation. When you notice dysregulation, which is often signaled by a change in our body, or your body might have a feeling of not being safe, it might have a feeling of hypervigilance, you might actually have a physical response, you might get a lot of brain fog that clouds your brain, or might show up in other ways for you. That's a sign that your emotional system has become dysregulated. And now it's going to be your job to learn how to protect yourself and how to protect your nervous system, so your nervous system feels safe enough to unwind, relax, and ultimately heal. So a very first awareness is, if you feel a trigger, you feel a dysregulated response, is to check in and check with your your surroundings. Is there something physically going on in your surroundings that is causing you danger? Or is the danger more of a response to something that your mind appears or perceives as a threat? That's important, because if you are in physical danger, then it is imminent that you take yourself out of that danger and move yourself to a space of physical safety. If there's not an urgent physical threat, then that means most likely our nervous system is responding to an echo from the past, where it feels unsafe because it feels like something from the past might be repeating in the present moment. And that's when it's important to remind yourself that although I feel unsafe right now, I am physically safe. Sometimes feeling our hands connecting to our bodies in a way that is grounding us to ourself, feeling your feet, those are ways that you can tune in and feel that connection back to the safety inside yourself. And then you can ride the wave of that emotional trigger. So many people at this point, myself included, fight that emotional trigger because they make all sorts of meaning about it, and often leads to making us feel like we have to fix something or figure something out, when really the best thing we can do for ourselves is just be with ourselves during that trigger. So watching the energy rise in our body, and then providing internal safety so that that trigger can settle back down. Breathing helps that. Deep breathing can connect us back and calm our nervous system. Connecting physically to a sensation of touch or sound can calm us. And then after that, you can begin to look at what was the thing that triggered the nervous system. And that's a sign of something deeper inside of you that needs some attention, and it needs some support in healing. If you've experienced these things, maybe you've even been on a long journey of recovery, and maybe you've done therapy, you've done a lot of work on yourself, but you're still finding yourself kind of trapped in some of these responses, I'd love for you to leave a comment or even reach out. This is some of the specialty work that I do in coaching, and it's really important work. I know it intimately because of my own journey of healing and recovery. I know how that impacted me in the work environment, to be feeling, dysregulated a lot of the time. And even in my journey today, my self-care, my lifestyle is all now built around being supportive of myself and maximum thriving in my mental health, physical health, and all other aspects of my life. So, and it's a journey that we can feel very, very alone in, because unless you've traveled that road and you know what it's like, it can be very difficult to find a person who can guide you to a different space. And that's why I think there can be varying results with therapists or even other coaches, because if someone isn't intimately aware of how the nervous system and the brain and the body responds to chronic stress, which sometimes is called complex PTSD, then we can inadvertently be doing things that kind of double down on that stress instead of actually heal it. That's where I wanted to end today. Our hustle and grind mindset in the culture of the United States is very triggering for people who have chronic stress, or their nervous systems are, responding to chronic stress. And can be an environment that's very triggering and causes us to be in our limbic brain, because that hustle and grind culture and mentality is all about just keep doing it, do more. And our value and worth is equal to what we produce and what we can create. And that's a recipe for burnout, especially for somebody who is impacted by chronic stress. But then there's the other side of it too. When we're living in our limbic brain, the limbic brain wants us to feel good. It wants us to not do things that feel stressful to it. And so we can then shy away from doing the very thing that helps us create healing. So stability, creating environments of stability and consistency support nervous system healing. Now that's much different than a hustle and grind environment. It's an environment where we're committed to not taxing our nervous system to the max, but we're committed to providing consistent, mindful ways of existing and living. And for people who've grown up in a lot of chaos and stress, that feels unfamiliar. It feels unsafe to be in stable environments. And so when the limbic brain sees consistency as boring or a threat because it doesn't recognize it, it's like it's rejecting the very thing that will help it heal. So if you're on this journey and you've been frustrated with yourself for not being able to be consistent with things, or being derailed by emotional spikes, just know that you're not alone. It's okay. It's part of your limbic brain reacting to the situation. And also just know that you can teach your body and your brain to re-regulate, move back into that prefrontal cortex by gently being consistent, by gently creating consistency and discipline. Not in a way that is scolding or forcing or chasing at all, but in a way that's nurturing and kind and caring. So please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and leave me a note about what was important that you learned from this conversation today. All right, take care, and we'll talk to you soon.